quickly, that takes us back to one of the questions that I asked earlier. Why is successive governments finding it hard to give Nigerians a constitution they can really call their own? Godfrey Ihedema, you were raising your hand. Quickly, we're going to dive into the Q&A session. If you have something to say or to ask, simply raise your hands. Godfrey, are you ready?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay, go ahead. Unmute yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question and I also have a contribution to make. I'll start with the contribution. One of the issues I think is a problem, even though it's not, it doesn't encompass all the problem we have with the constitution, is the issue of cross-carpeting. You know, during the times we have, like in 2015, after the elections, the PDP majority at the National Assembly, and after the presidential results we announced, we had mass defection. So can we address this system of cross-carpeting? Let's INEC and let us have electoral reforms that restrict politicians from cross-carpeting after results have been announced or during their tenure. Let there be consequences. Maybe if you cross-carpet, you lose the opposition, because most times people also vote for parties, you know, and if we give our mandate to a particular party and the candidate wins, if he cross-carpets, he betrays the mandate that was given to the party. So we also need to address the issue of cross-carpeting. Let there be restrictions on cross-carpeting. Maybe you come in, you can't cross-carpet on a particular period of time. And if you are going to do that immediately, you have to forfeit your seat or some other sort of consequence. And also the parties need to indulge in their system. That's the contribution I would want to make. Then the question I would want to ask is, we have lawyers and barristers and those in the legal system whose daily activities involve interpreting the law. For the layman, many of us do not understand or do not have a comprehensive idea of what is contained in the Constitution, especially with regards to quoting certain sections and all of that. But we have experts whose involvement in interpreting the law is detailed in their daily activities. Why do we have legislators who probably do not even know what these laws they make, what might turn out to be? So can we also have a system that allows the legal system, you know, make contributions to the kind of laws we have in the country? Because it is not enough to go to the court and interpret what the law says and use it in discharging or acquitting anybody. We also need to have people who also bring in the thinking on the interpretation of the law at the point where the law is being made. So is this possible for us to this idea and let us have it in mind? Because if we're thinking of constitutional reforms, we also need to think of the structure that would take care of the reforms, the structure that would also bring about new development in constitutional reforms or overhaul, as the case may be. Thank you.
All right. The shorter we go, the more we can take. Ozamaka Nwachuku, those in the hall, we will be getting back to you. Okay, Ozamaka, let's hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello,
yeah,
good morning.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, based on the first on the previous speakers' questions and reactions, I want to say the problem of our constitution, one of the major problems of our constitution is the party system generally. Okay, I feel for the constitution to thrive and for the political settings of this country to thrive, we need to go back to the indigenous practices of selecting individuals to lead us based on their individual capacity, okay, and abilities. Okay, I know in some countries it's being practiced, like in Brazil to an extent, they have what you call a citizen participatory platform in which you don't have to belong to a party system to belong to the government. So you see members of the government, but members of the opposition party participating in the government of the opposition party. All right. So I feel if we can take out the party system, or if possible, restructure it in a way in which individuals who have something to offer to the country can rule, rather than being restricted by own contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ozamaka, let's.
Whenever any sensitivities that are bordered on the lives of, just like immediate past electoral acts that we all saw what transpired at the National Assembly. Both houses, whether Democrats or Republicans, will always vote on a bipartisan consensus. Nobody will ask you whether you are related to the president or whether you are a Republican or whether you are a Democrat. You always vote on a bipartisan consensus. Nobody will ask you your ethnic group or whether you are from North and South. That's the reason why I say that the Constitution is rigid. I don't think we arrived for you to go to that extent. Then let's go to the implementation, where I want to say that both the makers of the law, the legislator, the implementer, the executive, and the judiciary, in his interpretation, have been erring. Sometimes courts of concurrent jurisdiction will give conflicting judgments. And we are asking ourselves, is judiciary still the last hope of a common man in this our country, Nigeria? Somebody raised the issue of state police. I'm not saying that I'm against it, but you see what some state governors go to different states and see what the member of party or the relations of some of the state executives are doing. So we have problems from both, and we have to come together as a nation and forget about where we are coming from, every other thing, and see what we can do to make this Nigeria better for the future of our children and for our posterity. Thanks, and God bless you.
Thank you for that contribution. We can take a few more contributions before we get back to.
Good afternoon. My name is Sunday Odibo. I represent the Renaissance University. My question goes to the keynote speaker. Sir, I would like to take an extract from what you said earlier. The executive has swallowed the other branches of government, that is the judicial and the legislature branch, or the judiciary and the legislature. Sir, does it also mean that the executive has swallowed the basic idea to construct the law by the judiciary? At what point, sir, does the judiciary construct the law? When there is a constitutional crisis, or when there is a strict adherence to the principles of separation of powers? Thank you.
Mine is looking at the topic, reworking the Nigerian Constitution for national transformation and integration. The first question I want to ask, have we agreed to integrate? Because it appears that we are preempting the different peoples in Nigeria. And as a matter of fact, that whatever constitution that we're coming up with must be for integration. I think we have to be thinking in line of reworking the Nigerian Constitution for national transformation and in line with the yearnings of the people. Because as it appears, some people are acting as if they no longer want to be integrated, while some others are acting as if they don't even want to integrate others. So the Constitution has to be in line with what the people want. Whatever they want, that is what the Constitution has to go with. And then when we are talking about reworking the Constitution, there are issues we have to look at because a lot of water has passed under the bridge. The Constitution we have, yes, it is bad, and people are saying it is not from the people. We agree to that. Right from the beginning, right from the independence era, that we never had a constitution that originated from the people. So why is it that at this point we are saying, let's go back to the 1963 constitution? In spite of the fact that it didn't come from the people. Meaning that there are good things out of it, which we are no longer seeing, and people want to go back to it. And so somehow we are mixing up a lot of issues. The issue of the constitution and the issue of governance. I think what most people are looking at when they're talking about the constitution is how to address the issue of bad governance. Because when we are talking, when you ask people, when you interact with people who are clamoring about the state of the constitution and the need to have a new constitution, you find out there are people who are addressing it from the issue of, from the bad governance mindset. They want things to start working properly because things are not working properly. But at that point, you look at it, you can see that it is more of the issue of failure of governance that they are addressing. And from some other perspective, you see that some people are looking at it from the point of sectional mindset, or from the point of how do we share the existing resources? So how do we have a constitution that will include all sections of the country in terms of sharing the available resources, not even in terms of generating it? And sometimes it will appear as if the constitution as it is totally bad. There's nothing good about it. And so we're not equally looking at the angle of the abuse of the existing constitution. The issue of rule of law, as raised by one of the guest speakers. What aspects of the constitution are we abusing now? And how do we get about it to make sure that it is working? Because if we have a good constitution that is being abused, it will still be as if we don't have a constitution at all. These are the issues we have to look at when we are talking about constitution. At the present level, what is it about the constitution that is so terrible that some governors cannot allow democracy to be deepened within their state with regard to the local government? If you come to the Southeast, for instance, there are some states that have never organized the local government election for the first time, or they don't even care about it. Where you see local government election being organized, you find out that it is abuse of democracy. So is it the constitution that we need to get some of the governors to understand that there's something like local government within their state? If you look at the state of infrastructure, which is actually the reason most people are clamoring, and that is why the politicians can get some people to believe this issue about marginalization, that it is because of marginalization that we're having bad governance. And people are believing that. And when they go with that argument, you find out that when they are clamoring for a separatism or separation, they might believe that once they separate, everything will be okay, without asking the issue of what is happening now. Are we okay as we are? And so what do we need the constitution to achieve for us? Is it the constitution that we need to demand for accountability as it is? Because what we see in most parts of the country, if we are talking about the issue of corruption, you find out that we have gotten to the stage of what I may refer to as ownership of corruption. If a corrupt person is from our own side, we don't bother. So there is this competition about who will be more corrupt. And if you must talk about constitution, don't mention corruption. Don't mention the person from my own side. So if we are talking about this issue of constitution, we have to look at it holistically. The good aspect, the bad aspect, and what we want to get out of it. If we are not clear about what we want to get out of it, we will keep going round and round. And even when we think that we have a constitution, it will still fail us because we have failed to address the issue of the abuse, even the one that we have, the issue of abuse of constitution. Thank you.
I'm Apostle Dr. Ife James. I represent Church Groups, Christian organizations. I want to appreciate the organizers of this program. like to say that I'm again first by the facilitators who have said few things about this program really. And when coming from home, I part my heart that I will address the issue of so-called reworking of constitution. Because to me, we don't have a constitution. A constitution that the people have no hand in enacting is the rudiment of making a constitution. The so-called national constitution, our people don't have in making a coming out of it. Perhaps it is a constitution that those who never want Nigeria to exist helped those who are in power to actually impose on Nigerians. And each time it's reworked, nothing comes out of it. How do you call it constitution? People are clamoring for 1963 constitution, of course. But my question is, what happened to the 1959 constitution that gave us independence, which created three regions: the northern region, the western region, the eastern region? And it delivered really. People were very comfortable until the military coup and every kind of politics that came into it therein. Then what happened to that 58-59 constitution that actually brought Nigeria into existence? Why was it so abrogated? And we're not talking about 1999 constitution, which I never had because the military look at this. And today it's been enforced on Nigerians. It doesn't defend us. It gave a region power to remain power, to do anything they like, to do it in elections, whoever they want, they bring in. And that is why rule of law is not standing. That is why the governance is in shambles. I want to bring to our mind three things that happened of recent. One, if you watch Kano Kaduna electric regulation, you discover that people that are paying electricity bill are 1.6 million. And through elections, they are the highest in population. Come to Southeast, during elections, they are the lowest in population. But 8-something million people are paying electric bills. Go to it. Who is feeling who? Then because those who are in governance are not directly elected by the people, rather by the cabals, so to say. But those who, now they don't speak for the people. They go up there where they've been discussed, nobody listens to the people. Rule of law is not there. The legislation is not checkmating the executives, rather it's rubber stamp for the executives. The judiciary is not doing their job, rather they're part of the executives. Who is feeling who? When people are killed in Jos at that time, the governor, the executive could not defend the people. They could not order for the people to defend it. We're not, what is the constitution be? Down in Southeast here, people can be looked into the areas and nobody asks about them. Because the people in governance are not representing the people. What I was trying to say. What has 1958-59 constitution done? Let's reenact it. That's our constitution. And rework it. 1959 constitution is not constitution at all. We do not have a hand in bringing it to us. It is oligarchy constitution. And it's not a constitution at all. Having said this, if we allow this experiment to work well, thank our elites have spoken. Today, the elites that are governors don't speak because they are always in good position. Having said so, we are saying that there's no reworking of 1959 constitution. Please, we want to see the 1963 or 58 constitution being reworked. Thank you very much.
All right, it's been very wonderful listening to everybody. I'll read out the chat, the comments in the chat room, and then we have here Isaac, Israel Isaac, and it says, I am grateful, first of all, to join this discussion. I joined quite late, but let me quickly drop a point or two before I leave. First, we need to try to dissolve the walls of ethnic bias and religious sentiments, because these factors have affected the national consciousness of our existence and essence as a nation. Having said this, we also need to know and acknowledge the operational systems of each region and profile mechanisms that can accommodate these systems in order for us to have an all-inclusive administration that can work for all and sundry. Work for all and sundry where, let me get it. The Constitution is faulty on all fronts, and that's the reason why it's not functional. We must endeavor to build psychological and logical rational bridges that gives room for empathy for both the young and old, man and woman, weak and strong within our polity. There should be conscious effort at educating and reorienting the minds of the citizens towards embracing the culture of allegiance and loyalty to national matters. Quickly, I want to get back to our keynote speaker and then back to the two discussants. Justice, let's get your quick reaction on some of these issues that have been raised as we tie it all up.
So it has been so amazing and wonderful. And you can see I've been laughing and nodding my head because a lot of issues have come on board. You see, somebody asked a question, I think second to the last speaker. He directed a question to me. I think let me start from there. He said, to what point do the executive arm of government taking over the two other arms of government, having in mind the doctrine of separation of power? You see, the truth about it is this. I am one of the people that has always said this and challenged the government that for any government to strive, for any government to do well, you must adhere strictly to the provisions of the rule of law, and again, make sure that you adhere strictly with the principle of separation of power. And when we talk about principle of separation of power, we should have in mind that Montesquieu, who propounded the principle of separation of power, did it for one simpler reason. And what is the reason? That the three organs of government must work separately in order to avoid tyranny. That is in order to avoid abuse of power. And once that is not happening, there must be abuse. And that is what we are seeing in Nigeria today. Now, in the sense that the legislature and judiciary today, the executive has swallowed them, I still maintain my assertion on that. Because if you look at it, can we hit our chest today in Nigeria and say that judiciary and legislature, they are independent? The answer is no. They are not. Because if they are independent, what is happening in Nigeria today cannot be happening. Every legislature today, every House of Assembly member, every senators and House of Rep members, almost 90% of them have become errand boys to the presidency. The same thing we're seeing in the state. House of Assembly members have become errand boys to the executive. Then you now ask yourself, where do we get the disconnect? When the executive is supposed to be under the mercy of the legislature. Having in mind that even the money you are spending as an executive must be appropriated by the legislature before you can even spend it. And the law also in its wisdom provides that even the legislature, they have an oversight function to monitor and supervise how this money that are being appropriated are being used by the executive. But the problem we're having here, like somebody said, pointed out, is the issue of bad governance. Let me tell you the truth. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing too wrong with our law, with the Constitution. The problem is this. The people who are struggling with the responsibility of implementing the Constitution have come up with impunity. For example, look at the local governments as we talk. If you go to Section 6 of the Constitution, yes, Section 6 of the Constitution, which subsection A, which provides simply Section 7, subsection 6, paragraph A, which provides that the National Assembly shall make provision for statutory allocation of public revenue to local government council in the Federation. And it goes further in subsection B to say that even the House of Assembly of various states shall also make provision for statutory allocation of public revenue to local government. Now, you now ask yourself a question. Where did you get the governors? How did the governors now, since 1999, came under one umbrella to hijack the allocation of the local government from the federal government, and now withhold it, and now that's more like that's the local government money. I think it is a sort of right. And everybody is keeping quiet. We are talking about the constitution. The constitution is bad. But yes, I agree in total that they will need to work on the constitution. But the ones we have we been able to implement it? The answer is no. The impunity is what is our problem. Bad governance. Impunity is the highest order. So when we look at it, now, let me also tell you this. The ethnic biases we are having today, the ethnic crisis, the religious statement we are having today, is as a result of bad governance. Now, can you ask yourself this question? The First Republic was not like this. Second Republic was not like this. So what went wrong? In those areas, we have other statesmen who were interested in moving the country forward, who were interested in integrating the unity of the country. But today, well, I wouldn't say an apology. But since we started having the money back, taking over government positions in Nigeria, that is when all these problems started. And let me say this. The Losinyero of Tanzania once said, he said that which is holy has been given to the dog. He said, until we tell ourselves the truth, we shall persist and continue in error. And for that which is holy, it's not good to be given to the dog for them to trample upon. I made you to tell you that the holy things in this country, which is governance, have been given to the dog, and that's why they're troubling upon. So if you look at the caliber of people we have in the First Republic as our political leaders, then look at the caliber of people we have today as our political leaders. Can you not see an aberration in between the two? Today is all like the highest money mechanism in the country today is joining politics. Was it like this before?
All right,
it wasn't this way before.
Yes, just because of time. Thank you so much. Mr. Davey, let's get your live you had so far.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me just quickly respond to a few of the posers here. First, let me just quickly correct. One of the observations raised there was as to the executive interpreting the law. I should like to quickly correct that only the interpretation, the duty of interpretation of the law is that of the judiciary and not the executive. Just to, I say that in passing. Secondly, there was this question about whether what we need is a constitutional reform or a total overhaul. As we can, find from my earlier position, I have argued and maintained that what we need goes beyond simple amendments. What we need is a general overhaul. I did mention very clearly that the Constitution, as we have, was not even the making of the people, that the content, the provisions are not people-driven and definitely cannot be said to be a constitution of the people. I also alluded to that fact, and this will also answer this question, that the essence of a government or the essence of governance is to bring to bear, the necessary social welfare, to the people. That is what somebody else, mentioned as economic welfare. What this means, simply put, is that the non-justiciability, that is to say, the non-enforceability, and to bring it to home, to non-lawyers, is that the fact that you cannot enforce before the court your rights That's your social rights, which also include your right to education, your right to general welfare, is part of the, the challenges that requires, total overhaul. The more we continue to amend this part and that part without, hitting the nail on the head, we will, remain, just in the same position, and we may never, move at all. Yes, somebody also alluded to the fact that is judiciary really the last hope of the common man? That statement in court cannot change. It may appear like a mirage in Nigeria, and the reason is not far-fetched, and the reason is simply what I said earlier. The judiciary cannot on its own run the affairs of a nation. The judiciary is the judiciary of a people. The judges are human beings like us, just like the head of the executive, whether at the federal or at the state level. They are also human beings. So we in Nigeria have always had the leadership that we deserve as a people. So we owe it a very big duty, and a bigger one this time around, with the way things are going, to begin to reorientate ourselves from our own confines in our homes to, every other place or places that we find ourselves. And yes, the judiciary, in a way, may have been compromised, so to speak. We will find just recently the hues and cries about financial.
The recording has stopped.
Yeah, financial independence of the judiciary, and I can attest to the fact that my branch, the Nigerian Bar Association, took these as as our responsibility. We took to the street and we, in fact, protested publicly to the extent of reaching out to the governor of Lagos State to ensure that this part of the constitution that requires overall at the end of the day be observed. So generally, I think we should not miss the point at all. The point is that the constitution that we operate as we speak is not that of the people. It is a constitution born out of the exigency of the time that it was brought all about. As we speak, we now need to sit down and overhaul completely. And with this, I'm sure the question as to whether we will still have a Nigeria in the nearest future we will begin to manage it. We will begin to manage it from that point of view. If we don't, I will just we will just continue to beg the question, repeatedly. So I'm sure because of time, we may not be able to take all the questions, and I do not want to rehash all that we have said here today. Yes, we're open to further advice or support even outside this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Adeyemi Abejere-Square. Thank you so much for your comments. And on this note, I think I will want to.
Very well. Thank you very much. Let me just simply say that we express our sincere gratitude, particularly to the organization, the African Heritage, for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts. As members of the organization, we all know promoting the rule of law. On the other hand, we also appreciate every participant who took time out to be a part of this today. The part that we should not forget that will bring this gratitude and appreciation to bear is what we are all charged to begin to do from today. If we have not been doing it, is that we should begin from our home, from our office, from every confine that we have found ourselves, to begin to reorientate ourselves. This, of course, goes beyond the legal jargons that we will say at all times as lawyers. It goes beyond just coming together to talk all about this and not making it work at the end of the day. Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity afforded us today.
Ademi, thank you so much for participating in this event. Your institution, your group, they've been absolutely wonderful for us, in terms of this. They've been available. We've been able to work well with you. Really, I think the issues that have been raised here today are in many, many ways very vital for us as a people, as citizens of this country. The country is co-owned by us and other citizens all over the country. The reality is that we can't really be completely absolutist in our approach to this particular issue. I hear some people sometimes talk about it in terms of all or nothing, but we must. We found ourselves in a situation where we have to be both defenders of the Constitution and proponents of amendments that must be done in order for the Constitution to serve everybody. Beyond building bridges, which I have heard as one of the themes that a number of people have talked about, in terms of playing roles, the part of the reality that we must face as citizens from whatever sector that we belong to must be around the question of how to make the system better, more effective, and embracing in the way that integration normally works. Not in terms of merely participating in a way that simply says that they haven't done this, they haven't done that. That it needs to be an active participation on the part of those who have made it their lives to talk about this in a way that is contributive. The roles that I think we as citizens must play cannot be something that is choreographed in the way that things normally are done. It's about people owning parts of this narrative and working towards really making contributions in a way that would allow us to understand that it is a give and take. It cannot be, no particular group can get everything at once. And by the way, I think the whole idea that this is something that needs to be owned by the people. It's not that people must be actively involved in that sort of way. These things work in terms of representation. That we identify people who can make these inputs, because you cannot really go back to absolute democracy where everybody contributes their bit. It has to be representative. So here one is talking about actual practicality, for it to work. So the contributions here today, I think, have been wonderful. The justice has been very clear that really this is not about what we have being so absolutely bad that it needs to be thrown away and something new sort of brought in. Because there's something new that we bring will carry features that are actually already in the document that we currently have. So it's not about that per se. It's about finding problems that need to be addressed and strengthened for the good of the country. But again, I continue to raise this issue of this also being about changing attitudes. I think the justice was very clear that this is an important element. That if you bring in a new constitution dropped down by God, if people don't do what they're supposed to do, it still will not work. We need to know that, and we need to work towards that. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, for bringing this issue back to life, and for raising elements that you find interesting. I hope that all of us will take something out of this, and that we will actually work towards trying to make sure that this is something that also is embedded in the current discourse on this particular matter. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone will have the opportunity to take the little things that we have here on for those who are attending physically, and also to leave here, go back safely to wherever you came from. Thank you so much for participating in this. Daalunu.